Hey disciples, welcome to chapter 7 of our Bible study. We are still in the story for kids, which for those of you that are new to the Bible study, it is the Bible in chapter book form, and this is written at like a kids chapter book level, like Goosebumps or drew a blank on other kids chapter books.
Judy Moody.
Kind of that level. It's a really great way to understand the basics of the Bible, to get familiar with the characters, and it gives you the basic story, principle, and morals, and it holds true to the Word of God directly from the NIV version. So I recommend it to any adults who's not familiar with the Bible, any kids. At this reading level, I would read it with your kids because it still takes quite a bit of explaining for them to understand it on their own. I mean, I would say at least 10, if not older.
Yeah. Plus the fact that it's missing a lot of parts, so you have to like explain that as well, like what it's missing from the Bible, because it is a child version.
Yeah. So it's good to fill in some of those gaps, like as you've seen us do, and if you're new, you haven't. But like Abraham, it kind of takes out the whole having to sacrifice his son, which is a very important part of the Bible. Things like that. So it's important to fill in those holes as well. But we've had such a long few weeks. This has been like the longest month of my life. I'm not gonna lie. I've just been busy every day. And you guys saw last week how much I had to film on the go. And while on the go, I left my copy of the story at my father's house. So I don't have it, but I found an online version I'm going to use. It's a really, really small font, and it's on my phone, and it's cropped on the phone. So I'm going to do my best here, guys, but bear with me, because this is like super small. But before I read it, let's do some trivia questions. And since you were there last week, this will be particularly fun. How long did the Israelites have to wander?
400 years? 4 years.
Both of those are wrong.
Why are you staring at me?
Hendrix, Lydia, go play, please. Go. No. You got the 4 right.
40.
40 is correct. Now, why did God choose 40 years?
Is 40 is significant because why?
40 is significant because
I don't know.
He chose 40 years because that's how many days they got to explore the promised land when they sent spies. So they sent the 12 spies in to explore the promised land, and they were there for 40 days, and they came back and said, those guys are huge, they're going to kill us, the land's great, but we're just going to die anyway. God brought us here to die, we're never going to be able to feed them. And so they spread that message, and there was one exception of a man who stood up and spoke and said, we can surely beat them with God behind us. His name was, I don't remember, I'll say like Zechariah or maybe sort of the C. But God said because of their doubt, and they started whining like they always do, constantly doubting God, and it took them 40 years to learn that lesson, and they'll go back to doubting God because as humans we are just inherently wicked. But so because they got to explore the land for 40 days, God made them wander the desert for 40 years. And they learned to trust God after that, and we will see how they do at taking over the land and how God provides for them. Let me see if I think of any other questions.
Didn't they wander though too because they kept not trusting God? They kept doubting Him.
Yeah, and that was his time of getting under the punishment. But seeing that it was 40 years beforehand, God, all-knowing, knew that's how long it would take them. But there was constant trials with them and God, of them doubting God for one reason or another. Meat, food, clothing. In fact, in our story last week, remember, they were particularly thirsty and complaining to Moses, saying, God, curse us. He brought us out here to die. Why did He take us out of Egypt? Doubting once again. And what did Moses do? No, do you remember?
No.
How did he produce water?
Oh, from a rock?
From a rock. He hit the rock twice with his stick, and then the water flowed from the rock. Gallons and thousands of gallons. There's a lake there afterwards, it said. So,
do I get a cookie for every right answer?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I really want pizza. You can't have sweets before dinner.
It says who?
It says me. It's not my
what
forte.
kind of world you live in.
Questions. I think that was all that happened. It was a shorter chapter. We talked a lot about focusing on trusting God, and don't spend your whole life wandering and waiting to have trust in Him, to realize that when you have trust in Him, all things are possible, and that God will always comfort you and be there for you. Like we've talked about, He's the perfect friend, the perfect companion. So, this is chapter 7, called The Battle Begins. You guys like my slippers? Found these today. They were under the bed, deep and buried. That's where a lot of things get lost in my house. My side of the bed, particularly. Alright, The Battle Begins, chapter 7. Moses, the servant of the Lord, died. After that, the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun. Get it? Nun. Joshua was Moses' helper. The Lord said to Joshua, "My servant Moses is dead. Now then, I want you and all the people to get ready to go across the Jordan River. I want all of you to go into the land I am about to give to the Israelites. I will give all of you every place you walk on, just as I promised Moses. Joshua, no one will be able to oppose you as long as you live. I will be with you, just as I was with Moses. I will never leave you. I will never desert you. Be strong and brave. You will lead these people. They will take the land as their very own. It is the land that I promised to give their people long ago. Be strong and very brave. Make sure you obey the whole law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn away from it to the right or the left. Then you will have success everywhere you go." So Joshua gave orders to the officers of the people. He said, "Go through the camp. Tell the people, get your supplies ready. 3 days from now, you will go across the Jordan River right here. You will go in and take over the land. The Lord your God is giving it to you as your very own." Joshua remembered that the people in Canaan were very strong. He sent spies into Jericho, one of the towns in Canaan that God wanted the Israelites to take over. The spies would make sure everything was safe. When the spies got to Jericho, they met a woman named Rahab. She knew about God and His plan, and she decided to keep the spies safe. The king of Jericho was told, "Look, some of the Israelites have come over here tonight. They've come to check out the land." So the king sent a message to Rahab. It said, "Bring out the men who have come into your house. They've come to check out the land." But the woman had hidden the two men. She said, "It's true, the men came here, but I didn't know where they had come from. They left at sunset. When it was time to close the city gate, I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly, you might catch up with them." But in fact, she had taken them up on her roof. There she had hidden them under some flocks she had piled up. The king's men left to hunt down the spies. They took the road that leads to where the Jordan River can be crossed. As soon as they had gone out of the city, the gate was shut. Rahab went to the roof before the spies settled down for the night. She said to them, "I know that the Lord has given you this land. We are very much afraid of you. Everyone who lives in this country is weak with fear because of you. We've heard of how the Lord dried up the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt. Because of you, we are no longer brave. The Lord your God is a God who rules the heaven above and the earth below. Now then, please give me your word. Promise me, in the name of the Lord, that you will be kind to my family. I've been kind to you. Promise me you'll spare the lives of all my family, my father, my mother, my brother, my sisters. Also spare everyone and their families. Promise that you won't put any of us to death." So the men made a promise to her. "If you save our lives, we'll save yours," they said. "Just don't tell anyone what we are doing. Then we will be kind and faithful to you when the Lord gives us the land." The house Rahab lived in was part of the city wall, so she let the spies down by a rope through the window. She said to them, "Go up into the hills. The men chasing you won't be able to find you. Hide yourself there for 3 days until they return. Then you can go on your way." When the spies left, they went up into the hills. They stayed there for 3 days. But by that time, the men chasing them had searched all along the road. They couldn't find them, so they returned. The 2 spies started back. They went down out of the hills. They went across the Jordan River. They came to Joshua, the son of Nun. They told him everything that had happened to them. Joshua liked the spies' report. He knew it meant God would take care of the people once they started fighting in Canaan. Joshua had all the Israelites prepare for what God would do, and they got ready to attack Jericho. God told Joshua his plan for capturing the city. This is what happened when the Israelites came to the city of Jericho and the gates were shut tight. Joshua had given an order to the army. He said, "Don't give a war cry, don't raise your voices, don't say a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then shout." So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city once. Then the army would return to camp. They'd spend the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning. The priests went out, got the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets started out. They marched in front of the ark of the Lord. They blew the trumpets. Some of the fighting men marched ahead of them. The others followed behind the ark, all guarded all of them. The priests kept blowing the trumpets. On the second day, they marched around the city once more. Then the army returned to camp. They did all these things for 6 days. On the 7th day, they got up at sunrise. They marched around the city just as they had done before. But on that day, they went around the city 7 times. On the 7th time around, the priest blew a long blast on the trumpet. Then Joshua gave the command to the army. He said, "Shout! The Lord has given you the city." The priest blew the trumpets. As soon as the army heard the sound, they gave a loud shout. Then the wall fell down. Everyone charged straight in, so they took the city. The young men who had checked out the land went to Rahab's house. They brought her out, along with her parents, brothers, and sisters. They brought out everyone else there who was with her. They put them in a place outside the camp of Israel. Then they burned up the whole city, everything in it. But they added the silver and the gold to the treasure kept in the Lord's house. They also put there the things made out of bronze and iron. So the Lord was with Joshua, and Joshua became famous everywhere in the land. After the Israelites attacked Jericho, they continued to fight. With God's help, they captured many cities for the Israelites to live in someday. Joshua and his soldiers got rid of the sinful kings and the people who lived in Canaan. Joshua gave the captured land and cities to each of the 12 tribes of Israel, so the people had a place to live. The Israelites were finally living in the Promised Land.
Woo!
So it's a great story. It goes back to their faith too. I feel like that was almost a test from God. Instead of, "Here, go take the city, I'll deliver them into your hands," in a way like he had done previously in wars, and like with Abraham, where they hid in the woods and attacked at night, and God said, "This time they attack, get them." God instead said, "Hey, you're going to do something crazy here. You're going to march around the city 7 times, and after you do that 7 times, and you obey my word by not saying anything till the 7th day, the walls will fall." So a lot of people would hear that and be like, "There's no way that's going to happen. We can't do that. We got to come up with a plan B. We got to figure out how we're going to get past that wall when that doesn't work."
And how to keep that many people quiet.
I can't keep our own house quiet. That's
You can't keep your own mouth quiet.
It's true.
Let's be honest.
I'd have a muzzle. But, so they had to have extreme faith in God that he would deliver on his promise and hand them over the city by breaking down the walls because of their shout. So it was a great way to say, "Hey, you guys ready to trust me? Or are you going to continue to be hostile towards me?" So, obviously they did exactly what the Lord said. He delivered the city to them. They kept their promise. And what's great too is you look at Rahab. This is somebody who doesn't even know of God, shouldn't know about God. All she's heard about is stories from them, but she sees it very clearly that this is the only true and living God. So, Rahab, having no biblical knowledge, not an Israelite, she instantly knows that there's only one true and living God, and that's the God of the Israelites. And so she fears God, which is where all wisdom starts, right? In fear of God. So with her fear of God, she decides to help the Israelites, and she says, for helping you, please help me. I know God promised you this city. I know he will give it to you. I don't doubt that. Just be kind to me as I was kind to you. And so they did remember her. They actually left her there, essentially like a bandana of the Israelites to tie on her door as to make sure she would not be harmed. And then once they attacked the city, they did lead her outside the camp. Now, because of the old law, she was not allowed to live in the city with them. She got to live in one of the surrounding cities. But because she was an Israelite and because of the laws of being clean and a few other things they had at the time, she wasn't in the city with them. But I just think it goes to show you, people always ask that question. Well, what about somebody who lives in Africa and they've never heard about God and they die? What happens to them? I don't believe that man exists. I believe that we all know God. We're all born knowing God, and we all have him residing in us, in our heart, in our minds. He's knitted into our very fabric of life and our souls. And so for anybody to question that example, and I used to think about it when I was young, especially, say, what about that person? That person doesn't exist. We all have God revealed to us in some way at some point. Whether you're living in a third world country where you're illiterate, you've never got the ability to learn to read or to write, never heard about the Bible, you still know who God is. His love is still revealed to you. And so I believe there is no person who doesn't have the option to choose to believe in God. And I just think that ties really well with Rahab and her faith of, here's a God I don't know and I haven't heard of, but I know him to be true. Think about her in her position. Like, why would she help them out? She could easily turn them over, had them killed while they were hiding on her roof, and the townspeople would have been extremely happy with her. She may have even gotten a reward, and then they could have plotted a way to build a stronger defense against the coming attack, being more prepared for it. But that's not what she did, and that kind of goes against all logic. Can you picture having somebody break into your apartment complex, and you see them outside your house, and you're like, you see the security guards looking for them, cops looking for them, you're like, hey, come hide in my house. And they're like, well, what we plan to do is to come back here with our friends, kick all of you out, kill you all, burn the place down. Okay, well, let me help you out with that. It's just like, it just doesn't make sense. Having the option to turn them over. It's not like you're being held at gunpoint by them. Knife. I'm sure they didn't have guns. But nevertheless, she still saw the living God, the power of him, and feared him. And that's another thing we have to remember. That I think we're so used to looking at God like a grandfather. Grandfather God. He'll give us candy before bed,
Cookies?
Or cookies. We look at gentle Jesus, and we get so stuck on that. And I'm not saying that God doesn't possess the characteristics of love, kindness. I'm not saying Jesus wasn't love and kindness. But what I am saying is they were also God's made to be feared. Jesus was a man on a mission, and there's so many times he called out sinners, that he demanded power and had a commanding presence. And he wasn't this weak and feeble man, but a strong, determined man, somebody who couldn't be talked down to, somebody who couldn't be taken away from his goals, from what he believed in. There's no deterring him from anything. That's somebody who sounds very headstrong to me. And when we think of God, God is a jealous, angry God as well as he is a loving God. And we should all fear God because we are all sinful people. And we fear God for his immense power because of our fallen state. We have to fear God to have any hope, any wisdom in this life. Psalms is constantly full of passion for God and talking of the fear of God. And when I think fear of God, I almost think of reverence for God, an immense, deep respect. Like when your dad, let's say you're in trouble, right? You're a kid, you're like 6, 7 years old. Your dad, your mom's been struggling with you all day. Clean your room. You're being a pain. You're not listening that well. Dad comes home, you're still not listening. Dad gives you that stern voice. You better clean that room or you're going to be seeing the belt. As soon as that commanding voice comes, you are scared, but you respect your dad, so you go up there and you clean your room. You're scared of the belt. Now, you still love your father. You know he loves you, but you respect him, and you know that he's somebody to be feared, respected, just as much as he is loved. And God's a good father, and as good fathers do, he is here to also discipline us and to make us better. And that starts with fear and respect of God. So that's something we have to remember as well, like the Israelites learned now that they've gotten into Jericho. But next week, we'll see if they stay faithful to God, how their walk with Joshua goes, the surrounding battles in the cities, now that they've built up the 12 tribes. So we'll be excited to see what happens as we go further into the story. In case you're curious, I believe it's like 32 chapters total. So we're getting through it. I think that's about 25% done now. I mean, it's pretty good. 8 weeks, quarter of the way through. So stay with it, guys. We're going to have a lot of fun. Continue to read the Bible. I can't wait to see you guys next week on the couch. Get your copy if you don't have one. Reach out to us. We're happy to give you one free of charge if it's something that isn't in your budget. But yeah, Bible studies every week, 7 o'clock. It's a break from everyday hope for us to spend time in God's Word. Feel free to share, like, comment. We're always happy to answer any questions about anything we read as well. Just reach out to us in the messages or comments.
And if you have any prayers that you would like as well, we do have a prayer request board. So if you just want to message them or comment them, or even if you want to keep them private and you would just like us to privately pray for you or with you, we can do that as well. And if you would like it to be a public prayer, we'll write it on the board to share during an episode of Everyday Hope. And tomorrow we'll be back at the 7 deadly sins, and we'll be talking about greed.
Ooh.
Money, money, money.
Now I'm thinking about Billy Idol. Alright, well again, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next week or tomorrow for Everyday Hope.